Good morning, everyone. Your Excellencies, Mrs. Ambassador of Norway to Jordan, Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador of Sweden to Jordan, Your Excellency, Senator Dr. Talal Abu-Ghazaleh, Your Excellency, Dr. Ahmed Majdoube, Vice President of the University of Jordan, and Mrs. Brigitte Workman, the Chairperson of ANA HUNNA International. Allow me all, on your behalf and on behalf of myself and my colleagues, to welcome you all at Talal Abu-Ghazaleh Knowledge Forum. We are so happy and so excited to have such audience from all around the world. So we welcome all Arab countries and delegations from foreign countries and dear guests from Jordan. We at Talal Abu-Ghazaleh Knowledge Forum are so excited to have ourselves as partners and supporters to ANA HUNNA International, because we truly believe and commit to the objective and the cause that this network around the world was established, which is the women economic empowerment. We at Talal Abu-Ghazaleh organization are proudly living this in action, where women make more than 50% of our staff. Talal Abu-Ghazaleh Knowledge Forum is established as a platform to have your kind selves and any international activity and local that would really serve a good purpose and a good objective. Allow me also to say that we are broadcasting live this opening ceremony on Talal Abu-Ghazaleh radio station for business and culture, frequency 102.7, and we're also live on TAGKF TV. Thank you all for your attendance, and please enjoy your stay in Jordan over these couple of days. And allow me and welcome with me Mrs. Brigitte Workman, the Chairperson of ANA HUNNA International. Please.
Thank you very much for these kind words, this warm welcoming. Dear Excellency, Mr. Uhlenhagen, dear Excellency, Mrs. Elf, dear His Excellency, Dr. Talal Abu-Ghazaleh, dear Dr. Professor Majdoube, dear ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first strategic talk of ANA HUNNA International Network that we had in cooperation with the Center for Women's Studies at the University of Jordan. It is wonderful to have you all here. And right in the beginning, I'd like to say thank you to our partners who support us in setting up this strategic talk. These are the Talal Abu-Ghazaleh Knowledge Center, Oxfam in Jordan, and Quina till Quina. Thank you very much. The social and economic integration of women is our overall theme. We all share the goal and aspiration of strengthening the opportunities of women in life, and in particular their economic participation. The claim, ANA HUNNA, I'm here, brings it to the point for what we are committed to empower women to pursue their ambitions and lead a self-determined, active and powerful life. What are the key factors enabling women to play a stronger role in economies? Which are the most effective ways in improving women's job opportunities? What are good impulses for innovation and good practices? How can we move forward? These are questions we would like to elaborate together with you today. Many of you already are familiar with the work and the achievement of ANA HUNNA when the program was developed and coordinated by the Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, the GIZ. Now we are building on these 6 years of experience working with ANA HUNNA materials, the short films, the education materials, which were used in schools, universities, and in adult education. And I'm pretty sure the Vice President of the University will refer to the very successful ANA HUNNA mentoring program for young female graduates. Jordan is one of 5 ANA HUNA countries. Activities are taking place in Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, and more recently with first pilots in Germany. And I'm very happy that today ANA HUNA International Network members from all these countries are here to participate in this talk. You can actually see these people with this nice button. And so when the end of the GIZ funding period of ANA HUNA came into view, the members opt for sustainability. Convinced that a proper path is being taken with ANA HUNA and the will to continue working on this approach in the long term, the ANA HUNA International Network was founded in November, last November, exactly 1 year ago, by 22 organizations and individuals from Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, Germany and Jordan. With this step, we started a new journey. It is a start from the scratch. Our network lives through the ideas and contributions of its members, and it will grow through more and more knots that link up good ideas and new partners. Our resources are our experience, our relationships, our diversity, our MENA and European backgrounds, our aspiration and our ambitions to move forward. All members act at the same level. The Germans are not the latest. We believe that cross-country and cross-regional exchange of knowledge will provide impulses for innovation and will make important contributions to advance the economic empowerment of women. The ANA HUNA International Network is a platform to bring organizations and people from the MENA region and Europe together, and is a hub for exchange and to jointly create new ideas and strengthen existing activities. And we are very proud that ANA HUNA International Network was recently honored by the GAVBL, a horrible name, sorry, award, but the award is wonderful. We were awarded for the excellent work of the partners in the MENA region and for the cooperation between German and Arab men and women, which is expressed in the foundation of this new association. Today's strategic talk is a space for the network and other organizations in the field to elaborate on common themes and potential cooperation. And we are also very interested in your ideas and inspirations about the role ANA HUNA International could play. So welcome again to the strategic talk, and I wish us all an inspiring and meaningful talk. Before I will give the word to Mr. Mashbour, sorry, my Arabic is not so good at the moment. I try to practice a bit more. I would like to introduce you to our 2 facilitators of the day. These are Astrid Tief and Bishal Sadek, 2 members of our members of ANA HUNA International Network from Egypt and Germany. Not only should they guide us through the process, but also they have the important task of keeping the time. So in this regard, we should give them as little as possible to do, and that's the reason why I finished now here. So thank you very much, and we're very honored to be here.
Thank you, Brigitte, very much, and we really do wish the best for ANA HUNA International and local chapters or networks, the delegations representing the countries. And we really hope that it would come out with the results that we hope to, especially for Jordan, where Jordan ranks really low in the gender gap index, especially also on the women economic empowerment. So we wish that we really receive good results and kind of exchanging experiences and information and knowledge that can help Jordan to really better stand and rank better in the coming years. Allow me also on your behalf to welcome Dr. Ahmed Majdoubir, the Vice President of the University of Jordan.
My name is difficult in English, but it is more difficult in Arabic. Your Excellencies, dear partners and friends, ladies and gentlemen, good day to all of you, and we welcome our friends and guests to Jordan. And we hope those who have not yet had the chance to visit our campus to do so at their convenience. You are all welcome to visit our campus. It is with great pleasure that I convey to you the greetings of our President, Professor Abdul Allah, who could not be with us today, and who deputized me to welcome you on his behalf and to affirm his and the University of Jordan's commitment to the success of this joint initiative. We are extremely proud of ANA HUNNA, and I hope we can carry this even to further dimensions. We at the University of Jordan are doing our best to spread awareness, to educate, and to conduct advanced research on a number of key issues pertaining to gender and the status and role of women, both through our Center of Women's Studies, which is shouldering a huge responsibility at this point in time, as it has been for years, and through other academic courses and programs, in our School of Languages and Literatures, in the School of Arts, which includes sociology, social work, as well as literatures, and in other liberal arts disciplines, the School of Educational Sciences, and the School of Islamic Studies, to name a few. A lot is happening which contributes to a better understanding of gender and the role of women in today's world. And we have recently introduced a course, as a matter of fact, on women's studies, and our colleagues are teaching this course, which is open to all first-year students from across the various disciplines, for the purpose of educating our students across campus about the discipline of women's studies and about key issues within the discipline. Regarding the specific focus on women and economic and social integration, the University of Jordan lends its full support to all efforts in this direction, as this is one of the key national priorities that we have in Jordan, and we are willing and eager to do more through our center and through other schools and programs. As for the focus on innovation in particular, this could not have come at a better time. Everyone is concerned these days, as is well known, with the skills required and the challenges posed by the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution, which include innovation. Innovation is a skill needed by both men and women in the new age which has dawned on us, and we are ready to work with partners to enable something substantial to happen on this end. I welcome you again to this important gathering and look forward to working together on materializing more output and celebrating more success. Thanks go to all the organizers of the event and to all participants from Jordan and abroad, and God bless our joint efforts. ANA HUNNA ونحن هنا. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. We are all proud of the mother of Jordanian University, the University of Jordan, and its efforts and advocacy all the time and over the decades in supporting women empowerment and gender equality and economic empowerment. I guess we're all excited to hear some impulses from our dear friend countries, starting with His Excellency Mr. Ambassador of Sweden. Sweden to Jordan, please welcome with me His Excellency Ambassador Erik Ulang. I hope I said the name properly. I guess I did not.
Shukran. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and especially friends of gender equality. I spent my morning this morning at a girls' school in East Amman. The basic idea when I do that now and then, the basic idea I met 10 and 11 graders girls is that I should inspire them. I don't know if I was successful. I think they inspired me more than I inspired them. To come to a neighborhood and a school like this and meet young girls, young women almost, that really have the dreams of becoming professional, of becoming part of society, and taking part in workplaces, it's demanding. It's demanding for the international community. It's actually demanding for the universities of Jordan. It's demanding for the decision makers of Jordan. It's demanding in the way that these women, when they are women, should have the possibility to fulfill their dreams. Today they didn't see so many hurdles. I had 1 or 2 girls in the class that said that, but the culture is forbidding me to do some things. I had one girl say, religion is stopping me from becoming a plumber. She didn't want to become a plumber anyway, but she said she couldn't be. But the majority in this class, in a public school in East Amman, girls of the age of 15 and 16 years old, sincerely believed that they could be successful with hard work. Some of you know that, but I am a convinced feminist. I know that that word is scary in some countries in the region. It shouldn't be. Being a feminist means actually seeing the injustices in society, realizing that these young girls in a school in East Amman will meet hurdles that boys don't meet. It's trying to do something about societies where you couldn't decide yourself whom you're marrying. It's trying to do something about a labor market that is locking out smart people. It's trying to do something about basic injustices. I think we all agree in here that human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights. And we could stop there and go home. But we also know that not all people are listening to that kind of arguments. So we also need to find some other arguments. Sometimes you say that cash is king. I would argue that queen is cash. Imagine what kind of opportunities we have for economic development if we really have true gender equality in this society and other societies. Feminism is not only about human rights, it's also smart economics. You could take the Swedish example and look at that and see, did the things that people want for happen when you had more women in the labor market? Did it take the men jobs? Did the kids have a bad life because the mothers went out in the labor market? The answer is no. If you look at the statistics in Sweden, 82% of the men are in the labor, participated in the labor market in Sweden. That's the highest in Europe for the moment, I think the highest in the world. At the same time, at 78% of the women are participating in the labor market. If it was true that women takes men's jobs, you shouldn't hardly have any men in the Swedish labor market. They could say, oh, we are almost equal here. But go back to economics. We had a study from European Union pointing also in Sweden, saying that if we have the same labor participation in Sweden as between men and women, we would gain 5 billion Jordanian jobs every year in Sweden. And then the gap is just 4%. Imagine what happened in a country that has, I shouldn't mention the country, but you could imagine a country that has 17% of the labor force, of the women participating in the labor force, but many of them had went to Jordan University because you can go there and you can meet them. Imagine how much good money you are throwing in the lake if you don't take advantage of this. Some short lessons from Sweden. It's always hard to translate lessons from one country to another. But the first one is, of course, that laws are creating attitudes and attitudes are creating laws. That means when you change the legislation, you also change attitudes. And looking at this region, you have we as an international community, but especially women activists in the country, human rights activists in the country, has a long way of arguing and advocating for changing the laws in Jordan and other countries in the region, because the laws we have today are creating attitudes that actually makes it harder for women to get into the labor markets. A second thing that I think quite a lot about, being a man is so much easier than being a woman. If you look back to Sweden, you know that you need the pioneers. You need the first policewoman. You need the first woman priest. We have women priests in Sweden. You need the first women minister. We're still waiting for the first woman prime minister in Sweden. That's a lesson we have to learn. But you also know that with these pioneers, it's quite tough. Because when you are the first woman in a position, you are representing all women in a way, because you are looked at as the first woman doctor or the first woman boss. That's quite heavy burden on your shoulders. Because you know at the same time that if I'm not successful, people will say next time that we can't try a woman again. We did that before and it didn't work out. So being a pioneer is quite challenging. I never, by the way, heard anybody saying that Eric was a bad ambassador, so next time we can't have a man as an ambassador because we tried it. You know, that's for me in a nutshell the difference, that I'm seen as an individual, but Tone still, I will say, is seen a little bit more as a female ambassador, even coming from Norway, and have in that way a little bit harder challenge. To make it easy for the pioneers, a lesson for Sweden is the mentorships programs. Having people to talk to, having people supporting you, having people listen to the major journey before, be it woman and be it man. It depends on the individual. But that's one of the lessons that we also think we will try to find ways to support in Jordan and the region, because we know it has been successful in Sweden. A third thing that is a special challenge, I would say, for this region, but it was true in Sweden as well, get the whole country on board. It's getting, you know, it was easier in Stockholm from the beginning in Sweden or in Uppsala or university cities than in the countryside. If you look at Jordan today, you have so many brilliant people trying to make a difference, but many of you, because some of you are in the room, are concentrated to Amman. And that's great. But we also need to find ways of supporting projects, supporting mentorship programs, supporting business, women in business outside Amman, because then you might have also the challenge of being in the countryside and not having the networks of the big city. If I would point out the biggest challenge in the Middle East, and it's hard to do that being an outsider, and you should be a little bit careful, but it's also a lesson from Sweden. What we need to create are societies where it's possible to be a working mom and seen as a good mother at the same time. If we don't win that battle, we will have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of women, millions of women in this region that still will choose to be the good mother. If we have the cultural idea that it's wrong for women to be in the labor market, many women, and I understand them, choose to be with their kids. I would do the same. If somebody told me that if you are an ambassador to Jordan, your kids are going to suffering and you're going to be seen as a bad father, I would choose kids. The only thing is that I'm never posed that question or that challenge. That's the difference. But being parents for many of us are so important. To be able to be a good mother from the Swedish experience and still a working mom or professional, you need a kindergarten. You need a taxation system that works. You need a public transportation. It's so many things need to be done. But having that in mind, because if I'm coming from Sweden, or as it's said sometimes, some elite groups from Amman are telling people you should be in the labor market, and the society around them are saying, yeah, you're in the labor market, but you're neglecting your kids. We have lost the battle. We are going to see it as an international community that missed something, or an elite. Finally, being a feminist and having the gender glasses on means also that gender equality is not a side scene. It's not something that we do when we have finished with other more important things like security or economy or something else. You have gender equality challenges everywhere. And I'm firmly convinced that the most important thing for this region is to get more of gender equality. Innovation for economic empowerment of women is part of the solution for the economic challenges of Jordan and other countries in the region. to create sustainable peace is also getting the women to the negotiations tables. To solve one of our greatest challenges in the region, water, we need to get the women on board. It's the women that carry the water, it's the women that manage the water in the households. So this is not a side scene, it's one of the solutions to many of the challenges of the region. And thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your commitment, because you're making the world a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador, for this very inspiring statement. Now for another statement from a very neighboring country, I would like to invite to the podium Madam Ambassador Tone Alice of Norway.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the organizers, dear excellencies, dear friends. I must apologize. Of course, we're very close neighboring countries, so I will approach many of the same issues from a slightly different angle. I would like to look back at the year or when I was born. I was born at the beginning of the 70s. And at that time, Norway had never had a female prime minister. We had very few women in high positions. And women's participation in the labor market was a little less than 50%. Now, today, 46 years later, the situation is completely different. We have a female prime minister, we have a female minister of finance, and a female foreign minister. And there is nothing spectacular about that. We have the same work participation as Sweden, more or less, 77% for women and 83% for men. And what is surprising is that there are more mothers working than the average for women. So during the most productive age, when we have kids and we are very, keen to work, more women are able to combine this and actually work during that period. Even if it's so, we are far from being at our end goal, even in Norway. And I think it's important when I start talking about the Norwegian example, it's important to look at these two basic principles that are at the basis of our integration of women into the workforce. So first of all, it's important to keep in mind that we see there is a general understanding in Norway that participation in all walks of life is a human right. It's essential. It's a human right. It gives you freedom to decide over your own life, and economy is an important part of this. Secondly, of course, it has economic benefits both for the individual and for the society. Eric just referred to this, how you can increase GDP or the economic growth by integrating women into society. In Norway, we talk a lot about how the discovery of oil resources boosted the Norwegian economy. But if you compare the figures, our human capital is worth more, much more than the oil and the gas. And there are several figures showing that it has meant more, the integration of women into the economy has meant more than the oil and gas discoveries. There are several explanations why the participation of women in the workforce increased in Norway during the 70s, 80s and 90s. And it has, of course, a lot to do with the technological developments. Of course, women needed to spend less time on housework during that period. You also got a different kind of job. Norway moved during that period out of the industrial and agricultural, dominated sectors and into an age where we have more jobs where other skills are important than the physical strength. So that is important. And also, because of the economic growth, there was a demand for labor force. And in Norway, we didn't import additional work, but we chose to integrate women into the workforce to address these challenges. But in addition to these natural developments, there were also some politically motivated measures that were taken during that period and that have led to the very broad participation of women in society. And I would like to highlight 4 of these politically motivated measures. First of all, education. of course, it's essential that during that period, more and more women started taking higher education. And when they had higher education, their value in the labor market increased. And it became very prestigious, actually, and attractive to have 2 incomes in a family. And people increased their living standard by both parents working. Then at the same time, we had a lot of legislative measures. So already in 1959, we adopted the ILO Convention number 100 on equal pay for equal work. And that was, of course, very important. Then in 78, we had our gender equality law, which prohibits all discrimination based on gender. And of course, legislation is extremely important, and it can be used in the struggle that followed, and it was used broadly. Then a number of institutional measures were taken. So we had parental leave that was expanded. It was at only a few weeks in the beginning, and now it's a full year with full pay, and it's shared equally between the parents. In 1993, it created a lot of attention when in Norway we had the papa quota. The papa quota was 4 weeks in the beginning. But now it's the other way around. It's only the first 6 weeks after a woman has given birth are reserved for the mother. The rest of the time can be divided between the parents as they prefer. So it's quite radical, actually, and of course it's the last step in a long development in Norway, so you cannot apply this at once in any country, but that's where we are now. And then we have now, in 2018, we have full kindergarten coverage, and of course that provides, it also creates, it's no longer a taboo, as Eric referred to have children in kindergarten, because it's a quality offer for everyone, and it's subsidized so that people can afford it. And it's also seen as an integration measure for immigrants in Norway, because when they go to kindergarten, they learn to speak Norwegian, they are integrated into society, so it's also an important measure to have integration in society. And then, of course, I think it's extremely important to keep in mind also that during this period, work hours in Norway became less. So both men and women started working fewer hours than they did earlier, which allowed both parents to spend more time with their children. So the father, of course, he was able to spend a lot more time with his children because earlier he had had the whole economic burden on his shoulders. But in addition to that, women were also allowed to work part-time. They had flexible schemes so that they didn't have to be away the whole day, and the children didn't have to stay in kindergarten the whole day. And today you have the right to work part-time until your children are 12 years old. So that's essential. And then, of course, as a consequence of all this, norms and preferences shifted. So that for my generation, couples are arguing who should take most of the parental leave because both parents are keen. It's seen as something positive to stay at home for both genders. Of course, even in spite of all this, we are not where we want to be. There are still a number of challenges in Norway and a lot of things that we have to continue to work on. First of all, I mentioned the problem of the differences between migrants and other Norwegians. And we had an inquiry or a commission put down in 2014 that discovered that there are huge discrepancies. Of course, among immigrants, the work participation of women is much lower in some groups, not all groups, but some groups. And it's a priority for our government to encourage women also in these groups to participate and to realize their potential, because it would both be positive for the economy and it would be good for these women to take actively part in the society. And then I'm really ashamed that we have very few women in top management. Eric just said that I'm still among few female ambassadors, but it's becoming less true actually. We have a quite high percentage in the public sector, but in the private sector it's still really bad. Only 20 out of 200 of our biggest companies have women as top managers. And that's in spite of several measures that have been taken. It created a lot of attention in 2004 when a conservative minister, a male conservative minister, introduced a quota for women in boardrooms in Norway. He said that in all state-owned companies we had to have 40% women in the boardrooms. And then 2 years later it became the rule applied also to private companies. And it was an intended effect was that that you would also, this would trickle down so that they would also employ more women in top management positions. But that hasn't worked out that way. So we still have to work on that, and it's really challenging. And of course this has to do a lot with creating an entrepreneurial culture also for women. I think women are also often hesitant to take on that kind of positions. So we have to start with the education system, and we have to have more subjects in school teaching boys and girls to take initiative and be creative and come up with new ideas. And we need more partnership. And what is positive, I think, in Norway, which I think you need in countries, is cooperation between different sectors. And so in our case we have very strong cooperation, and it's very much institutionalized between the government, the trade unions and the employers' organizations. And through this dialogue between these three parties you have a lot of initiatives that are taken to facilitate female participation also in the private sector. I think those were my main points. To sum up, I think it's very important to see that, you know, it's because we both see it as a human right and as economically beneficial to have women in the workforce that this has really created a push. And this push has come from the public, but gradually. It didn't happen overnight, so there were different causes that were fought from at different stages. And then it has created political will, and you need this political will to be able to move forward. And of course, because we consider this as so important, and one last point, I think it's very important that we have always looked at, you know, what would be the benefits for men and for women. So an important part of this in Norway is that we're looking at gender equality. It's not only about women's rights, it's about gender equality, and it's also about greater freedom for men, because they are now free to take part in family life in a completely different manner. So because we see this as very important, it's a huge priority for us, also in our development cooperation and in our cooperation with other countries. And I'm very happy to be here in Jordan and to be able to work with the Jordan University and the Talal Abu-Ghazaleh Foundation and other partners here, and the ANA HUNNA, of course, in the region. So looking forward to continued cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It seems I'm too excited that I hijacked the role of my dear colleagues, the facilitators. But I should mention something here that goes back in July when we started the discussion with Brigitta, Dr. Abir Dababne, to host this conference and this strategic talk where I presented to His Excellency Mr. Chairman the agenda and so on. Despite his heavy schedule and many trips and travel plans, he insisted to be in this occasion. And just a week ago, he also insisted that he will change his flight plans and itinerary coming from Bahrain this morning right away to join us today. So please welcome with me, Mr. Chairman, His Excellency Senator Talal Abu-Ghazaleh.
I come from business, so I'm completely different from I speak from different perspective, from excellencies and academic leaders whom I greatly respect. So please listen to this idiot with a different frame of mind. Women who are to be empowered, I am surprised. I've been married 55 years, and I didn't find that my wife needed to be empowered. And I'm sure that every married person would agree with me that women at home are very empowered. So why aren't they in the workplace and in government and in society? Why aren't they? I think I will make a very short presentation. I have 10 prescriptions to you that as a man who loves women, and I'm very well known as a lover of women, and I'm very proud that I love women, and some women love me. So I do that from a feeling of love. Number one, you need to capture the enabling power of the internet. I can't understand any woman asking for empowerment in the knowledge age. In the knowledge age, we are all IP address numbers. Everybody who's on the net is equal. There is no gender discrimination. And what we should be talking about is the future, not in the Stone Age. In the future, you don't need empowerment because there is complete equality. Internet is the only environment ever in history that provides complete equality. So there is no empowerment in the internet. You need to realize that empowerment should mean self-empowerment. When you ask to be empowered, I raise my eyebrows. Who needs to be empowered? You can empower yourselves, and you should. Don't wait for men to empower you. You are more powerful than men. You can take more hardship than men, and you are responsible for humanity. Half of humanity is women, and the other half was born by women. So you are in charge of the whole race, human race. So don't tell me and don't talk to me about the need to be empowered. 3, you should aim at, and I'm always looking ahead to the knowledge age. And I will have by next week I will be published, it's under printing, my book on the brave knowledge world, how we will all be living together in the years to come, under the 4th industrial revolution. So think of empowerment, your self-empowerment in the knowledge age. Why can't we, women, why can't you think of becoming like Bill, Mark, or Steve, who were not empowered by anybody? Who empowered Steve Jobs? Nobody. You don't need empowerment in the knowledge age. What I want you to do, and I think this is your number 1 task, is, and this is number 4 prescription, you should guide your children to become digital citizens. If you have one responsibility, from my point of view, it is for women to produce digital citizens. And don't listen to the nonsense about internet addiction. Internet addiction is favorable, benign, and wonderful. If your son or child wants to sit at the internet for 24 hours, make him sit for 25. Don't listen to the nonsense of it is an addiction. If it is an addiction, it's a wonderful addiction. Number 5, women should target leadership positions. You always would like to be like others. I want to be a member of the parliament. I want to be a chairman. Why? Why don't you think of what you can do to be better than women and not just equal to men, better than men, sorry, and be better than men? Don't look at men as your adversaries. Look at yourself in the mirror and see how powerful you are and how you can make it without trying to imitate somebody. Number 6, you should start businesses, and there is nobody that can hinder you from being empowered in business. Start businesses in the knowledge age, businesses based on ICT technologies. 7, your empowerment is through artificial intelligence. We have to realize that for the rest of this century, we will be governed and we will live in a world of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence has no sex. It's artificial intelligence. So through artificial intelligence, you can be anything and you don't need anybody to empower you. 8, what you need in advocacy programs is not to educate or encourage the other gender, the other sex. What you need is an advocacy program for women themselves. You need to tell your women fellows that you don't need any empowerment. You are powerful. You don't seek empowerment. Empowerment is never sought. When I've been, as I said, I have now grandchildren, but when my children were at school, 2 boys, 2 girls, one of my daughters was in charge of protecting the boys. She would come to the other child who was trying to disturb one of my children and say, "Do you want me to change your face?" And the boy would run away. So don't tell me about empowerment. You don't need it. I am a victim of empowerment all my life, as I said, for 55 years. So stop this nonsense of asking for empowerment. Number 9, instead of wasting time talking about empowerment, look at the laws and rules and regulations and see what needs to be changed and concentrate your efforts on that. Don't keep talking about empowerment. Form groups that would address, that would deal with the parliament, with the Senate, with the government, with the human rights, and work at changing there is at least some 30 mentions of inequality in the laws. Address them. That's what you should be doing instead of wasting time seeking empowerment and talking about empowerment. Finally, number 10, I would like you to look at this stupid paper of 1.5 pages and form working groups to implement what is in it. And stop lecturing to us men about how unfairly you are unempowered. This is not true. Do something about your own destiny. Take it into your hands. And remember that Churchill once said, the greatest lesson in life is to realize that idiots are sometimes right. So even if I'm an idiot, I could be right. Thank you. You didn't need to remind me about the 1 minute because I control my time.
Thank you for all these very impressive food for thought. I think it's a good basis for our discussion. We will start now, and before I hand over to the moderators or facilitators, I would like to present you something, and it was a pleasure to hear your inputs and impulses, and perhaps you can take a photo as well. And could you have?